start.
Welcome back. We just to have a break, and of course, technical always problems always to come back. Of course, I hope the sound is better. You can hear it. If you have any problem, please make sure that you can email me, Dr. Abdul Aziz, on admin@Radio Hajj online. It's on the screen, on the bottom of the screen. Dr. Abdul Aziz, admin@Radio Hajj online. And of course, you can listen to the program again on your own time, wherever you are, at your car, wherever you are, on www.Radio Hajj online, and you just go to the program, and the A2Z show is there.
You're crackling too much, Dr. Abdul Aziz, so just ask the question and I'll answer. You're crackling too much.
Go. Right. Now we are going to the national current affairs news. First of all, we'll be talking about the census, which has to be done by tomorrow, 21st of March. The census comes every 10 years. And of course, it's very important data for
I'll explain all that. Because
go on.
Okay.
Right, I'm correct. Right. Go on, brother Asad Zaman. Jazakallah khair for staying with us, inshallah. Now go on with the census. Go on.
Okay, every 10 years, we have a census. The purpose of that census is like with any other country as well. Every 10 years, the government wants to know how many people are in the country. Therefore, all the health service and the welfare service needs to take all of that into consideration. They need to know how many people are working, how many people are on benefits, how many people are, need doctors. And so to plan the country, so to make sure that the right services and the right amount of services are available, and they have, how much housing is required, how much, private housing, perhaps new houses, or all of that. So that the sense, and also how old is how many 16-year-olds do we have? How many 10-year-olds do we have? Are we producing the right number of children to sustain the country? How many elderly people do we have? How many people are about to enter the pension age, and therefore they won't be working anymore? They will be receiving a pension, and then to make sure that there's enough money in the pot for the government to pay the pensions. So the census has a huge number of benefits, and from a Muslim perspective, apart from all the other economic factors, that if we know that there are say 4 million Muslims in this country, then we can say, look, we need more services. We need, it gives us, the more of our population there is, the more authority we have. We speak with authority. If there's only 200 of you, you are not going to be able to get the attention of the government. If there's, 20 million of you, that you will get a lot of attention from the government. So your numbers are important. So we are about 5% of the population of this country. And therefore, we need to, we can say, well, we need to be properly represented at the political level. So there should be at least, say, 5% of Muslim MPs. Now there are about, just over 600 MPs. So 1% would be 6, and therefore 5% would be about 30. So we could easily argue that, look, there need to be at least 30 Muslim MPs to reflect the 5 million population, and the same for House of Lords and all the other things as well. So knowing the census for us is very important indeed. Of course, the census can also be used in a negative way, because if you look at Bosnia, from the, I think it was from the population maps that they had, the ethnic maps, they knew exactly where the Muslims were living, exactly what number house they were living in. So they were living next to a Croatian, a Catholic. They knew what number the Catholic was and what number the Muslim was, and Serbs within a village, okay, because it was a mixed village. So what they did was they went on the hills. And, you know, Bosnia is a beautiful place. I've been there. It's really lovely. It kind of reminds you a little bit about, a little bit like Wales. Very green and hilly and stuff. And the Serbs, they went on the hills and they just blasted. They knew exactly which Muslim house where Muslims were living. And they destroyed them. They killed them. Well, at that time, the figure was about 200,000 Muslims out of a population of 2 million. So literally about 10% of the population was wiped out, and mostly men. So the census and these figures, they are useful, but they also give those who hate us a lot of ammunition against us and tell us exactly what the population situation is. So yes.
When you Brother Asad Zaman, you're talking about those who hate the ONS, the Office National Statistic. It is actually what we call non-governmental department, and of course it has a purpose to provide data which is reliable positively to.
I can't hear you properly, Abdul Aziz. You're crackling too much.
Okay, go on then. Right, I'm just talking about the census and the fair and equitable and distribution of the wealth of the country on the inhabitant of Britain.
The one thing that the census is going to show is that there are at least 1 million British people or people living in this country fewer than before. Now, there's a reason for that. There's a couple of reasons at least. One is that people have been leaving because of the pandemic, especially from London. A lot of people have left London. It's overpopulated anyway, and they've gone to other countries. So that's created a huge, of course, situation there in London. So many people leaving can have a big impact on the economy. Also, of course, what's happened over the last maybe 10, 15, 20 years is that the population has been dropping because people are just not having many babies. Either because they can't afford to or because they simply can't. Fertility issues. And the result, of course, is that, I mean, we should know that if any country has a fertility or fertility rate, a birth rate of, once it hits 2.1 children per family, then your birth and death rates are about the same. And therefore, you have a constant population. If your birth rate drops below 2.1 children per family, then your population goes into decline. Right now, the population in this country is about 1.6. And that's a major, major issue in terms of the economy, especially, and various other issues as well for the future of this country. So the birth rate is dropping. And if it wasn't for immigration into Britain, it would be a lot worse than it is actually now. And the same goes for all.
Can I just, Brother Asad, can you hear me? But the birth rate for the Muslim community is higher.
The birth rate, the last time I checked, was about 3.8 children per family.
Okay.
So it is more than twice. And that's one of the things that the far right uses against Muslims, that look, their birth rate is so high. In about 20, 30, 40 years time, there'll be maybe 20% of the population, and therefore they will try to change the culture of this country, and all this scaremongering they use against us because our birth rate is higher. But of course, it's only 5% of the population. The majority, of course, is white. But the solution is simply have more white children. Then you won't have a drop in the population amongst the white population.
Therefore, you are talking now about race and everything, which is not. But now there's a lot of in Muslims, they can marry those people who are Christian or Jews. We have no problem with that. Of course, Muslim women cannot marry a non-Muslim. We have this rule. But there is a lot of now new Muslims who convert to Islam who are married themselves to non-Muslims who are Christian, and they can keep their wives as well. And some became Muslims now. Why you are putting a lot of emphasis on Islamophobia and racism? Why?
Look, it's called fear. It's the business of fear. What the far right, see, there is a fear amongst the many white people, not, I don't know about all white people, or certainly a large, perhaps a minority of them, and they tend to be on the right of politics, that if people from outside come here in large numbers and they don't become like us, as Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, millat, they don't become like us, their values don't become our values, then they will change the culture of this country. And they don't want that. Obviously, they don't want it. In Muslim countries, we don't want large numbers of, say, people of other religions coming and then changing the very nature of the country. And so this is what the fear, I don't know about the reality, but the fear is that large numbers of Muslims, they come, like a lot of the immigrants that came, the refugees are from Iran, from Syria, Iraq, Afghanistan, mostly Muslims. And so, and at the same time, our birth rate is also higher, about 3.8 as compared to 1.6 in the white population. So all of these, they create a fear that these people are going to one day take over Britain and, impose Sharia law in Britain. That's the fear that they create, and many people start to believe it, unfortunately. So
are you expecting that some Muslims will not say in their census they are Muslims, or they will not even actually bother to fill they do the census?
I think we can't live in fear that our numbers, if we identify ourselves, there'll be a problem. Look, what's going to happen is going to happen. We need to be honest, because the more numbers that appear on the census, the more we can demand from the government, quite simply, okay? In terms of security, in terms of benefits, in terms of other facilities, etc. Yeah? And therefore, numbers is power, okay? Because at the end of the day, we are living in a democratic country where it's all about voting. Who comes into power depends on who gets most votes. And the more the population is, the more we can determine who actually goes into power and in parliament. So that's the reason.
Therefore,
let's go to the next question.
Now, the next one, okay, let me just think, because I think, as we said, it's fucking right. Let's go. Let me just get my questions now. Now, there are some tricky questions. Usually, people will not be able to answer straight. First of all, the first question is the one who is on his name is the what they say, the householder is responsible for ensuring that this questionnaire is completed and submitted by the 21st of March, and there is a fine of £1,000.
I think what I've read is that on the 21st of March, or you can do it before the 21st of March. 21st of March is tomorrow. We could have done it today. If we know who will be in our house, living in our house on the 21st of March. So
I did it myself. I did it before. I'm just correcting things because there was a tricky one. Who is living with you? We have our children. Some of them, they are working in other places, but it's still, all the letters come to our house. Now, if they are not, can I just ask you this question? If I have my daughter of my son, he's working in another town, in another city, he's living there, but he comes from time to time. Do we consider him, he's living with us, or that's it, we take it off?
Look, you're crackling way too much, and I don't think anyone's going to hear what you've actually said, because I'm finding it very difficult to hear what you're saying. I know what you. I think I've got a gist of what you're saying. Look, all these answers. I've got a list of questions here somewhere, which I was reading. And, and they have answered most of those questions that you just asked regarding who goes on it and who doesn't. Yeah, I can't seem to. Yeah, here it is. Yeah. So I've got this sheet here, and it says who should be included. Okay. So let's have a look at who should be included. You should include as living here everyone who usually lives here, even if they're away from home on Sunday, 21st of March. Okay, so they normally live here, but they're away. Anyone from outside the UK staying here overnight who is in the UK for 3 months or more in total. Okay. Anyone from the UK staying here overnight who does not usually live here but has no other UK address. So anyone staying here overnight on the 21st of March who has another UK address should be included as a visitor. So it's reasonably clear there who should be included. Okay, should we move on? I think we should be finishing soon.
Right. Okay. Well, okay. That's a question. Now, regarding one question which comes in, you know, some people have double nationality. Therefore, they are British, and they have originally they are Pakistani or Algerian or Dutch, whatever. They ask you this question: how do you feel? Are you, if you have a British? They ask you about what is you feel you are you British or you are originally from your wherever you come from?
I mean, it's a strange question. You're British. You're living here. You got a British passport. You got a British nationality. You're British. End of. That's it.
Right. Therefore, if I, you know, for the, I myself, I look at it this way. My children are born here. I think they are British. Myself, I wasn't born here. I was born in Algeria. I came as a student to study everything. And because of circumstances, I stayed here. Therefore, I didn't plan it. It's Allah who planned this all. I planned just to come do my master and finish. And then I had to do PhD and finish home. But because Algeria had problem in the 90s, I have to do a PGCE and then work. But all my children born, they are for myself. I tell you that I don't have British citizenship. I did not apply for it, and I don't want to apply for it because I consider myself Algerian, and this kind of double nationality causes problems of identity. That's why I don't want actually to this. But as citizen, as resident, I complied by the terms and conditions of citizenship of this. Now the question is, this question is of course, as Muslim, we are known by our names. Anyway, Dr. Abdul Aziz, it sounds Abdul, it was Muslim, but you know, we are Muslim by name. Now, the idea is, of course, I want to just your advice. If my youngsters are here and they have double nationality, therefore, they will consider themselves British. But when we look to the case we talked about Shemaima, she has British citizenship and Bangladeshi, and now she's denied her nationality.
Look, that is a different situation completely. I mean, she went and joined what Britain regards as a terrorist organization, and therefore, you know, she doesn't have a right to call herself British because that organization was obviously fighting British forces. So her situation is very, very different. Although, you know, I think what's happened to her, if you want to talk about her, I think it's very, very unfair. I think, you know, she was a young girl. 15-year-old groomed on the internet by very slick IS videos, and she got brainwashed basically. And then, she was given a promise of utopia, that, the perfect life, Islamic life. And of course, it turned out to be anything but. When she got there, she realized it wasn't quite what it wasn't supposed to be. And now she's completely, if you look at her, and then she was denied even the right to come back and to have a fair trial. I mean, that's really unfair. And she was born here, and what the Home Secretary, Sajid Javid, did, because he wanted to prove he was more right wing than the average white conservative. He took her citizenship away, which he had no right to, because under international law, no state can make a citizen of the country stateless. And because Shamima did not have a Bengali, she's originally Bengali, she did not have a Bengali passport or citizenship. The only citizenship she had was British. The Home Secretary was not acting legally at all, according to international law, in stripping Shamima of her British citizenship. That was absolutely illegal. And I was just reading a case today of 3 Bengali students, again, similar situation to Shamima. They went and joined IS, but they've been given the right to appeal, having their citizenships removed. So they can appeal. And Shamima was not allowed to. So there is an inconsistency in the law there. So, I mean, look, she was wrong to go, but look, she was a young girl who was essentially groomed. Now, as her supporters say, if there were 3 white, see, she went with 2 other friends, the other 2 got killed. If there were 3 white girls in a similar situation, the government would do everything to bring them back and say, look, these poor little girls, they were groomed by these horrible people, and now we have saved them. We have rescued them from these nasty people in Syria or whatever. But they're Bengali girls, and they're very naive, very simple. And she's lost 3 kids. I mean, that's a lot of punishment in itself. What she did was clearly wrong, but she was a young girl who was highly impressionable at the time, and a very simple and naive girl as well. So yes, unfair, wrong on all fronts. Wrong for her to go, and wrong for the government to remove her citizenship and not to allow her back in the country.
Right. And one thing which I noticed, and maybe you know, and you can add some about that, is if you have permanent residence, but you don't have a British nationality, you cannot get a full-time job in this country.
I'm not familiar with the law. I think you need to speak to a lawyer about these things, or immigration lawyer. I think we need to talk about things that we do have knowledge about.
Okay. Now, there was a question, of course, about religion question. They named the 6 main religion, it's Christianity, Judaism, Islam, Hinduism, Buddhism, and Sikhism. And then they put others.
Yeah.
Why they don't put, for example, atheist, agnostic, no religion at all? Why they don't put those?
I think they should. They should know how many people are atheists and how many people are agnostics. I think that would be a reasonable question to put. You need to ask them why they don't put that. I really
because when you put others, you can find other religion, because definition of religion is a way of life.
Yeah, it kind of usually assumes you believe in God as well. But of course, Buddhists, they're regarded as a religion, but they don't believe in God. So I think that the definition of religion is a bit murky. to say the least.
By law, they recognize Sikhs and Buddhists. Sikhs are a minority religion, but the Muslims are not a minority religion. Why is that?
But Muslims are a minority religion.
No, by law, they are not considered as a religious minority.
Well, that's news to me. I didn't know that.
Yes, I think the Sikhs are considered to be a religion and are protected. The Jews are considered as a religious minority, but Muslims are not.
I think what you probably are confusing yourself with is that Jews and Sikhs are considered a racial minority, not a religious. They are,
right,
because they are
okay.
covered by race laws.
Okay.
Muslims are not a race. I think that's what you're confusing the situation with. Muslims,
okay.
of course, they have to be considered as a religious minority, but they're not regarded as a racial minority. But
right.
Sikhs and Jews are.
Okay, that's question. Okay, next question they ask when it goes to others, they say, are you white, Irish, British, you know, all these kinds of things, black, Afro-Caribbean, everything, and then they go for others. In others, they have now an Arab, a Berber, and other things.
You know, probably next census, if you and me are alive, they will bring in more breakdown. They want to know who's in the country. They want to know who's in the country, what color they are, what ethnicity they are, what's the mix of this country. They want to stay on top of things. They just want to make sure that they have a very clear understanding of, you know, how fast every community is growing. They want to keep an eye.
Okay, because there's a question here, how would you describe your national identity? They put British, English, Welsh, Scottish, Northern Irish, and then we put others. This is where the question comes, when you can find Algerian, other nationalities, and everything. Now about race, this is what you say. They say ethnic groups, white, mixed of multiple ethnic, Asian British, black British, Caribbean or African, other ethnic. There they say they entered other ethnic about Arabs, Berber, even Berber they have entered it as well, and all of this kind of thing. Okay, therefore they want the ethnic composition.
Yes, I think we need to move on.
Okay, right here, look, they say, right. Religion, we spoke about this. Okay, we have done it. They spoke about what is your main language.
Again, Abdul Aziz, I don't know why we're talking about this. They just want to know, you know, what is happening. I mean, what's your main language? Again, they want to know what different languages are spoken in the country. It will help them perhaps with, you know, how much money they need to put aside for translations of leaflets. If people don't know, I don't know, have translators working for the government.
But I mean, all questions are right. But one thing is, why did they say, what is your mother tongue?
Again, mother tongue is, you know, what language you speak. You know, you spoke, was the first language you spoke. It probably helps them in some way in terms of establishing services. Maybe, you know, children who don't speak English at home, perhaps they will need extra help in terms of, you know, building their ability in English at school. So how much, you know, money and resources they need to put aside.
Yes.
This is, you know, I think we need to be closing soon as well. But
right, because they said
affairs.
Yeah, because they said about main language is what you meant is by the most common language used at home.
I can't hear you. You're breaking up. You're crackling too much.
Okay. Okay. They talked about passport. How many passports you are holding? Of course, about the gender, now we are including all genders. Therefore, it's there on the census as well.
I can't hear anything you're saying now.
Right, okay. I think we might, decide to write, let's move on to the, therefore it has to be filled in, most information, you should know that. Okay, let's go to
You know what?
Europe.
Abdul Aziz, say as little as possible and let me speak. Otherwise, I can't hear anything you're saying.
All right, we talk about Europe, and you spoke about France, colonization, not to talk about it, no apologies by Macron.
Yeah, there was a report out, I think I was reading it today. You know, France is guilty of enormous war crimes in Algeria. We both know that. And recently they admitted to torturing and killing someone who's regarded as a hero in terms of, the resistance against the French. I think it was a lawyer who was tortured and killed, I think in 1950, 58, 57, I think it was. I think it was 1962 that Algeria got its independence from France. But, the attitude of the French are a strange lot of people. They committed absolute horrific atrocities in Algeria. And I remember reading that at one time, when the French were trying to justify occupying Algeria by saying that the landmass of Algeria and France they were together, and then continental drift has resulted in them separating. So really, Algeria was a part of France. This is a ridiculous.
It's a department.
This is a ridiculous argument that the French were using to justify occupying Algeria. And, the Algerians said, no, we've had enough. I think they were occupied for over 100 years. And they said, enough is enough. And I think it's about 3 million or something Algerians died. In fact, I remember, I think it was about 17% of the population of Algeria died trying to get their independence back, trying to get their country back. And to this day, I mean, it wasn't just there. It was Burkina Faso. It was the Ivory Coast, various other African countries that the French occupied, and they committed barbaric, atrocities in those countries, killing anyone who dared to oppose them. And to this day, the French, I mean, a few years ago, I think, is it 2-3 years ago, Macron did suggest that colonialism was very, very wrong. And it was very, I think he said something about colonialism is barbarism or something. In fact, war crimes were committed during the period of colonialism. So he knows, he's read his history, he knows how bad the situation was for the Algerians. And unfortunately, the situation for the Algerians in France now seems to be getting worse. They were shoved into ghettos, deprived of really a decent education and decent living, even though they are living in France. I by mistake, I mean, I remember going by road from Britain to Turkey, and we passed through, went through from Dover to Calais to Paris, and then we went to Clermont, and from Clermont to Perpignan. And I think it was, if I remember, it was in Clermont in France that we got lost at a roundabout. We didn't know which way to go, and we took a wrong turning from the roundabout, and it was like you entered a different time zone. And it was like, you had modern France, and then suddenly we entered, I don't know, 1920s France or something, where it was, you just felt you were in a different world. You just came through a time zone. and it was actually I think Algerian or possibly a Moroccan ghetto where only Moroccans lived. And I remember seeing the houses were in a really poor state. Everything was in a poor state. I remember seeing a 12-year-old boy with a bottle of alcohol in his hand, drinking in the street, half drunk. And of course, there's no police, there's nothing. They just left it to themselves, and then we went to the mosque, and the mosque was a tiny little, it was a very, very old, broken down building with a very small little staircase to the top room, which is a very small, hardly 4 or 5 people could fit in that. And that was their mosque. And it was a really sad situation, really, really sad. And I realized that is a ghetto, right? I'd been hearing about ghettos, and I didn't really understand what a ghetto was. Okay, a lot of people from one particular ethnicity living together. That you had the Jewish ghettos and various, but this was a Moroccan ghetto, and you could see that they had just been treated completely differently. So then those youth grow up, they are going to have a very, very negative attitude towards the French government, that they can see open discrimination. So it's very, very unfair the way the minorities are treated in France. In Britain is far better than in dealing with these minorities as compared to the French. The French don't like them, and they make it clear they don't like them by discriminating against them, and the police action and behavior towards them, and of course, especially with the Muslim population in France is now as much as 10%. So they can't keep discriminating against them when you have an increasing number of people who are of the Muslim faith. It'll be better for the French to change their attitude.
Okay. Right. Can you hear me? You can hear me?
Yes, but it's very crackly.
Right, okay. We will go just worldwide as well now with the news about rapprochement relationship and Turkey helping Saudi Arabia.
Well, this is interesting because Turkey and Saudi Arabia are in competition to gain the leadership, if you like, of the Sunni Muslim world.
Yes.
And I don't think there's any doubt who the vast majority of Muslims in the world see as a leader, if there is a leader in the Muslim world today, of course, is Turkey and Erdogan. No one looks at this kid, MBS, Mohammed bin Salman, as any kind of a competent leader. But the Americans wanted, Saudi Arabia to have that leadership position and not Turkey. But now that was under Trump. But now with Biden coming in, that relationship appears to be very, very different, especially because of the Khashoggi murder, and also because of what the Saudis are doing in Yemen. And of course, it's American weapons and British weapons that are being used in Yemen by the Saudis and the Emiratis. So MBS can see that now, America is going to not be as close as it once was under Trump. And it's out of fear more than anything else, and that Saudi Arabia feels, well, okay, I don't like Turkey, I don't like Erdogan, but I need weapons, and the Turks seem to have really got the edge on drone technology and using drones within a war situation, not just for surveillance. Mostly drones have been used for surveillance purposes, but to use them in a military context, the Turks proved that their drones are highly effective in fighting wars. And of course, they're very, very cheap as compared to, say, American drones or British drones. Much, much cheaper. I think, I don't know, a half or maybe a tenth of the price or something. rather than say F-16 fighter, which might be, I don't know, about $60 million or something, and a drone maybe, I don't know, 2 or 3 million. So it's a lot cheaper and highly effective. So surprisingly, Saudi Arabia is deciding, okay, well, and that's why it made up, it made friends with Qatar. Saudi tried to destroy Qatar, and Qatar just got stronger. It didn't get destroyed, and then Saudi and the Emiratis decided to just give up, try to destroy Qatar, and then now they try to isolate Turkey, and they failed in isolating Turkey, and a Turkish economy and Turkish influence is growing in Africa and other places. So they realized, well, we need to sort of do a bit of rapprochement, get closer to Turkey rather than treat them as an enemy. So this is how I see it.
Okay, I think USA, China, Alaska talks and everything.
USA is going to do its best to destroy the Chinese economy. That's the bottom line. China is becoming stronger, more powerful, as we discussed last time before, and is saying to America, your days are numbered. You need to just stay away from my, South China Sea. This is my backyard. I'm going to do what I want to do here. And Americans are saying, no, the world is, our backyard. You can't do anything without our say so. So yes, through trade and of course China has become the factory of the world, and so if you have a strong economy, you have a strong military. Strong military means greater influence in the world, and the Chinese economy is getting stronger by the day in spite of this pandemic, and so the Americans are afraid. And so, yes,
Are you saying under Biden, USA back as a policeman of the world?
Oh, no doubt about it. Biden wants to. It appeared that Trump wanted to pull back on its international, the US's international commitments, and Biden is saying we're back. We went to sleep for 4 years, but now we'll be flexing our muscles again in Syria, in maybe Iraq, in Afghanistan, in all these places. But the American economy will not be able to handle it. It's not as strong as it used to be, and it's all about the economy. Strong economy, strong military.
Therefore, you are saying
modern technology is very, very expensive.
Therefore, America is spreading itself thin. And what about in Egypt? Do you think Biden is talking about human rights? Do you think he will pull a plug on the Sisi to get him out?
It's difficult to see, or we discussed this last time, it's difficult to see Biden doing anything that will harm American interests. The question is, what is the American interest? What is the American agenda now under Biden as compared to under Trump? Still, protection of Israel is going to be number one. Protecting its oil supplies is definitely going to be there. Oil is still going to be used for a long time, even though the Americans are not as dependent on Saudi oil now as they used to be, especially now with the world moving away from fossil fuels like oil and gas and coal towards electricity and nuclear power stations.
Renewable energy, solar energy, yes.
Yes, and solar and wind power and wave power and all these. So, the world is moving in that direction.
And the last question, case of people who seek like Greeks and Egyptian who seek refugee status in some places, and the government of China and Egypt. And
I can't hear what you're saying. I can't hear anything what you're saying now. I think we need to. I think we can finish now. Yes.
All right, okay, inshallah, therefore, just about refugees, but you don't hear me, no problem. Okay, I hope, inshallah, it was a beneficial, like, with all the technical problems we have about today. Barakallah feekum, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala accept from you and from us, and Allah bless you. Bless us all in this month of Sha'ban, and make us to reach out to Ramadan as a better Muslim, and we get the opportunity to betterize ourselves
Okay,
and
inshallah.
improve. Okay, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi. Subhanakallah, wa bihamdika, ashhadu an la ilaha illa anta, astaghfiruka. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.
Bismillah.